Hey, this is Chaotic here with another CZN video. With Rita's preview finally out today, we're going to break down her full kit, including epiphanies, ego manifestations, and her partner, to see what she's really capable of. And at first glance, Rita looks like a strong single turret DPS with a really high ceiling and some unique mechanisms. Shout out to Cosmic Plays Gotcha on Reddit for the screenshots, and we'll be using those to go through her skills and epiphanies. So her core mechanic revolves around two new terms, Chronicle and Chrono Ascension. Every time you play one of her cards, basic or unique, she gains Chronicle based on the card's cost, stacking up to 6. So this is going to exclude neutrals and monster cards. And to start out the turn, that Chronicle converts into Chrono Ascension, and we're just going to call it Chrono for short from now, which basically acts as a second AP bar just for Rita. So 6 Chronicle becomes 6 Chrono, meaning she gets up to 6 extra AP to spend that turn. And at the end of the turn, it resets. This is what makes her crazy. She can generate her own resources and chain multiple attacks, including basics and uniques, every single turn. Then starting with her first skill, Chrono Action, we're going to zoom in a little bit. This is her bread and butter for building resources and lets her function as her own AP battery. Epiphany 1 lets her gain Chronicle even when using Chrono, and you only need to spend 2 stacks to hit max Chronicle. And then Epiphany 2 adds damage, but since Chrono caps at 6, and this card deals 100% damage to a random enemy, you're looking at up to 600% damage here. And then Epiphanies 3 through 5 give her different ways to gain Chronicle. So on Exhaust, Discard, and Retain. You can tailor it depending on your build and team. Next up is Time Axis Collapse, her main single target nuke. Epiphany 1 starts at 400%, 450%, and scales based on total card cost in hand, hitting that 200% bonus for around 1350% damage, which doesn't seem to be too difficult considering the rest of her kit. Epiphany 2 shifts it to a 1 cost card and scales off low cost cards in hand, potentially reaching another 300%. She can use this Epiphany version with characters like Serenial that can spam 0 cost lasers and easily gain up to 300% damage on this version of Epiphany. Then Epiphany 3 buffs your next 3 cards by 100%, which ends up being comparable in total damage to Epiphanies 1 and 2. Then Epiphany 4 is really interesting. It has Retain, applies vulnerable, and auto plays for free when you gain Chrono. And since you gain Chrono at the beginning of the turn, this card is basically played for free before your turn even starts. Despite having lower base damage, it does have huge value, especially with the 2 vulnerable stacks. Then Epiphany 5 ties into her Fate Imprint mechanic by setting them to 4 costs, letting you start the scaling chain immediately. Speaking of that, let's take a look at Fate Imprint. Fate Imprint is an exhaust card that scales with cost, starting at 240% and ramping up each time one leaves your hand. So you can go 240%, 360%, 480%, and higher depending on the AP cost of that Fate Imprint. With Epiphany 5, you jump straight to 480% and start snowballing. Then we're going to skip down to Chrono Circle since we're already talking about Fate Imprints, so we can analyze this skill. Then Chrono Circle will generate these Fate Imprints. The base version creates 2 Fate Imprints, and Epiphany 1 gives you 3 imprints right away, which is super consistent. The Epiphany 2 creates 2 Fate Imprints and then on retain creates one fate imprint. So you can use this potentially with Orlea's growth acceleration as well as Will of Light to create many of these fate imprint cards when played as a retain. Then in Epiphany 3, when Chrono Ascension is gained, move all basic cards of this unit to hand. This unique ability allows her to cycle her basic cards. At the beginning of the turn, she can play her basic cards, and then right after gaining Chrono Ascension, she can return these back to her hands and play them again. This is huge and it enables even more chaining and lets her recycle basics back into her hand, meaning you can potentially spam basics multiple times per turn. And then Epiphany 4 gives you fate imprints based on a card's cost, but it's more situational compared to Epiphany 1. And then lastly, Epiphany 5 draws 3 2-cost cards at the start of the turn, and after using Time Paradox, which opens up some strong synergy with cards like Anchor Shot or Vulture's Ejection. Her third card adds some utility for AP manipulation. Epiphanies 1 and 2 we're going to look at, third card as in Future Decreed. Epiphanies 1 and 2 let you activate a random 3-cost card for free. Epiphany 4 activates 2 cost cards for a net gain of 2 AP, which is really strong. And then Epiphany 5 lets you deal damage based on increased costs, which synergizes perfectly with Fate imprints. And if you stack those up high enough, you're looking at some really insane burst potential, well over 1000%. And for copy targets, her builds actually look pretty flexible. Future Decreed is a strong option, especially if you can copy this card before the Epiphanies, and you can keep copy of Epiphany 1 as well as Epiphany 5. And that way you're able to play a 0 cost for a 3 AP card, in addition to dealing 300% damage to a random enemy every time a card's cost is increased and is used. And then I think Time Axis Collapse is also another great copy target, since that's her main damage dealer outside of her Fate imprints. And if you have the AP support, especially with someone like Typhera feeding her resources, she can deal a lot of damage in a single turn with multiple copies of Time Axis Collapse, especially that first Epiphany. Overall, I think her sustained damage looks really high, especially if everything lines up. And then let's take a look at her ego skill. Gives her additional 6 chrono stacks, which can be converted into Chronicle for even more AP, while also boosting her next attack by up to 200%. And then her partner, we get the base 8 to 16% attack. And then when a 2-cost or higher justice attribute attack card of the assigned combatant is used, increase damage about in the next card by 25%. Then, in addition, if a 2, 3, or 4-cost card of the assigned combatant is used, gain 1 premonition, which can stack up to 3 times for a total of 15%. So just with the first 3 abilities from this partner, we already have 3 damage buffs. And then the Eagle skill gives another 20% damage. Despite Ivy being specific for Rita, being psionic as well as justice attribute. There's not another combatant with those specific requirements. But if you are going to use Rita, I think Ivy will be the best in slot option and increase her damage significantly by bringing 3 different damage buffs. Now looking at ego manifestations, E1 turns 6 Chronal and Chronicle into 8 Chronal, giving you extra AP, 2 extra per turn. And then E2 is a basic damage boost. Then E3 increases your ego scaling cap to 300%, which doesn't matter too much. E4 gives a stacking damage buff up to 30%. So altogether, she already has quite a few damage buffs, including her partner and now her ego manifestation, even her own ego skill buffs 1 card's damage. Skipping ego 5, ego manifestation 6 is where things get kind of crazy. When Chronal is gained, you get another 6 stacks once per battle. So you're looking at turns where she can hit something like 20 plus Chronal. You have the 6 Chronal from the beginning of the turn, then you get plus 8 from E1, then you get another 6 from her partner, or from her ego, and then you get another 6 from E6 once per battle. So I'm not sure exactly where the math is, but maybe around 25 to 26 Chronal in one turn. And that's an insane amount of damage. On top of that, when Chronal Ascension is removed, inflicts 80% fixed damage for each Chronal Ascension used over one turn. So you're really looking at, if you're looking at 20 plus Chronal Ascension used in one turn, that's easily over 2,000% damage. Even on a normal turn where you have 6 Chronal and then 8 Chronal after Time Paradox is used for 14 total, you're still getting 1,000% damage with just this E6 fixed damage. And this is where she starts to look kind of busted. So overall, Rita looks like a very strong single target DPS with unique and high skill kit. Downside is she's not beginner friendly and definitely not auto friendly. Her cards have to be played in specific order in order to maximize her resource. She needs proper sequencing, setup, and support. And if key cards get discarded, such as her Chrono Archon in Chaos Tier 15, one of the common debuffs is discard a card at the beginning turn, then her whole engine can stall. She basically won't be able to gain her mechanics and deal as much damage as she potentially can. But if everything does line up, card draw, AP support, proper setup, her damage ceiling looks top tier, possibly competing with 9. At E0, I think just on paper, they're probably going to be pretty similar. And E6, her E6 is way stronger than 9's. So E6, I think she probably can rival 9's damage, especially one turn burst. Sustained damage over multiple turns might be pretty close, but one turn damage, I think she's going to be the strongest in the game. So if you haven't invested in 9 yet, Rita looks like a great pickup. If you're already deep into 9 with high ego manifestation levels 4 plus, you can probably skip and save for the next limited or strong unit. But if you enjoy collecting characters, you enjoy complex kits, optimizing damage, and high ceiling characters, then Rita is definitely worth considering. I think she's one of those units that looks solid at first, then becomes broken once people really figure her out, especially at higher investment like E6. So overall, let me know if you're pulling for Rita, and what you think about her kit or team comps. And as always, appreciate you guys watching and have a great day.